Today, our story takes us to the Middle East in the mid-6th century BCE. During this time, the Median Empire was in control of most of the Middle East, and the Kingdom of Persia is one of the many kingdoms under its rule. But that is all about to change because of a man who creates a legend. That man goes by the name of Cyrus the Great, and he is only the first in a line of kings that will go on to create one of the greatest empires the ancient world has ever known. Cyrus the Great. Cyrus was born Cambyses the First. He was born in the clan of Achaemenes. This is the commonly accepted story of the birth of Cyrus, but just like many events in his life, some believe that there is a hidden truth. Legend says that Cyrus was born the actual grandson of the very man he would go up against years later, Astyages, king of the Median Empire. The story goes on to say that before Cyrus was even born, Astyages had a dream that showed him Cyrus would be the one to overthrow him. A panicked Astyages sets up a series of plots to eliminate this threat and even tries to have him killed when he is an infant. Luckily, Cyrus manages to survive and is raised elsewhere. When he grows up, he meets up with his estranged grandfather, who welcomes him back into the fold. No one can say if these series of events are true, but it is a legend that seems fitting for Cyrus. The actual story of Cyrus and Astyages is a bit vague in some areas, but has a clear ending. Astyages, for an unknown reason, sends an army to attack Cyrus, who had taken the throne as king of the Achaemenids' Persian kingdom by this point from his father, and had become his vassal at the time. Unfortunately, his commanding general, Harpagus, decides to betray him and joins hands with Cyrus. The Battle of Hirba is the first battle between the Persians and the Medians in this revolt. Harpagus tells Cyrus about the attack ahead of time. Cyrus writes to his father to meet him at Hirba to join the battle, and Harpagus takes his troops and deflects to Cyrus's side. The two armies fight, and Cyrus manages to defeat the Medians. Later on, Cyrus leads his army onto the Persian border and then combats once again with the Median king for many days. This goes on for what is believed to be 3 years. Everything comes to a head when Cyrus captures the Median capital of Ecbatana. He also captures Astyages, who spends the rest of his days in Persia. After this great victory, Cyrus built a city named Pasargadae, after his tribe, which turned into the capital. During this period, another kingdom had taken notice of the rising Persia, their neighbor, the kingdom of Lydia. Croesus, king of Lydia, was doubtful about their success. A divine message from the Greek oracle of Delphi confirmed his thoughts, and he set off to launch an attack on the Persians, believing he was the one that was going to stop the rise of this great power. The first battle between Croesus and Cyrus' army was called the Battle of Tyria. The result was not as Croesus expected, and he made a retreat back to his homeland. Not satisfied with just this, Cyrus pursues the Lydian army to their capital city of Sardis. During the Battle of Thymbrara, Cyrus was able to surprise the army, but the Persians were still outnumbered. Cyrus decides another tactic is needed and puts baggage camels ridden by cavalrymen in the forefront of his army. The stench causes a great disruption in the Lydian army. The Persians are able to get the upper hand, and they lay a 14-day siege on Sardis. The Persians win the final victory and conquer Lydia. Cyrus shows his benevolence as a leader by not destroying the kingdom, allowing them to keep their laws, religions, and traditions. Croesus was even allowed to be part of Cyrus's court. This move, in turn, allowed him to gain the loyalty of the Lydian people. Compared to the battles with the people of Lydia, we know a little less about the battles in the process of conquering the mighty kingdom of Babylon. The Babylonian Empire was in control of southern and central Mesopotamia. Unexpectedly, when Cyrus attacked, the kingdom had a swift defeat. Many believe that the Babylonians were unprepared for the perilous Battle of Opis. During 539 BCE, the kingdom was dealing with problems on all sides. There were severe social and economic problems, plagues, and famine, and the people had turned against their king because of his bizarre religious practices. Ever resourceful, Cyrus uses these issues to his advantage. He made a deal with the governor of Gutium, a key region, to defect to the Persians. He then used the region as a frontier for his offense. The Babylonian city of Sippar then decides to surrender, and Cyrus is able to take Babylon with almost no resistance. After capturing Babylon, the Persians now had control of all of the Near East of Mesopotamia under their rule. Cyrus shows the people of Babylonia the same tolerance as the Lydians and allows them to keep their cultures and customs. This also allowed Cyrus to have access to their knowledge of infrastructure, and that helped create the famous Persian roads that helped connect Persia to the rest of the Middle East. This episode is also written in the Bible. Cyrus is said to have been sent by God to free the Israelites from captivity and has anointed him. He allows the Israelites the freedom to go back to their land and rebuild their temple. There is a specific verse in Isaiah 43:1-3 that reads like this: "Thus says the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whom he has taken by his right hand to subdue nations before him and strip the loins of kings, to force gateways before him, that their gates be closed no more. I will go before you, leveling the heights. I will shatter the bronze gateways and smash the iron bars. I will give you the hidden treasures, the secret hoards, that you may know that I am the Lord." In 530 BCE, Cyrus led a campaign into Massagetay, but he was killed in battle by Thamyris, the queen of the Massagetay. He left a legacy of being a just and benevolent ruler and uniting 3 mighty dynasties under the Persian Empire. His tomb still stands in Iran today, reading, "O man, I am Cyrus, who acquired the empire for the Persians and was king of Asia. Grudge me not, therefore, my monument." Cambyses the Second. Cambyses was the firstborn son of Cyrus the Great, making him the unquestionable heir to the throne of Persia. Cambyses was carrying out his duties as vice king of Babylonia when he received news of his father's death in 530 BCE. That same year, he claimed the throne with no conflict, and even though Cambyses took the throne as a king full of promise, he later became a king full of controversy. 5 years into his reign, he completed his father's goal of conquering Egypt. The Egyptians were prepared for the battle, so they were able to ally with Samians from the Greek island of Samos and mercenaries from Greece and Korea. This caused them to defend themselves so well that Cambyses had to change tactics instead of having a head-on fight. The Egyptians were known for their love and reverence for cats due to their worship of the goddess, Bastet. She was the goddess of fertility, domesticity, childbirth, and cats. The capital punishment for harming a cat in Egypt was death. Cambyses was well aware of this and used it to his advantage. In the following Battle of Pelusium, he had his soldiers put the images of cats and all other animals that the Egyptians revered painted on their shields. This tactic turned out to be very effective. The Egyptians laid down their arms and some fled, fearing punishment from Bastet. The Persians attained the region with no resistance and took control of the city of Memphis. From then on, Egypt became a territory under the rule of Persia. After this success, things went downhill. There were reports of Cambyses becoming a mad king and going against one of the main factors of his father's rule, which was the tolerance of the nations that he conquered. He was first said to have sent an army to attack an oracle who would not legitimize his rule of Egypt. Then there are claims that he looted temples, defiled royal tombs, and mocked the local religion and gods. He was also said to have killed a bull that was sacred to the Egyptians, Apra. Apris was a bull believed to be the physical manifestation of the Egyptian god Ptah. Another outrageous claim is that he married both of his sisters and even claimed that he had Egyptian heritage to give legitimacy to his rule. He ordered the premature burial of 12 Persian nobles and the execution of several members of his court unprovoked. After this chaotic series of events, Cambyses left Egypt to end a rebellion started by his brother, Bardia. On his way there, he mysteriously received a wound on his thigh and died due to infection days later. At the time that Cambyses the Second was rushing to stop the revolt of his brother, Bardia, his brother-in-law Darius, who was married to 2 of Cyrus's daughters, was also trying to end the revolt. Darius was aware of the truth that Cambyses would never find out due to his early passing. The Bardia that started the revolt was a fake. The real Bardia had already died, and an usurper by the name of Guamata had taken advantage of not many people knowing that Bardia was dead, and started a revolt in his name. Due to Cambyses dying on his way there, Guamate, as Bardia, was able to take the throne as the new king. Darius and 6 other nobles of the kingdom planned a mission to depose the false king, and they were able to accomplish their goal. They now had to select the rightful king. Unfortunately for Darius, he had no hereditary claim to the throne. He and his family were very involved in the Achaemenid dynasty's rule, with his father being an officer in Cyrus's army and Darius himself being a spearman during Cambyses the Second's conquest of Egypt. Most importantly, he was married to 2 women in the Achaemenid royal house, but that still didn't give him a claim to the throne in the end. Darius was very ambitious, so when the group decided that they were going to have a test to decide who was going to take the throne, he didn't leave his odds up to fate. The test would go like this. All the men would mount their horses outside the palace, and whoever's horse was the first one to neigh with the rising sun would be the king. Darius very quickly came up with a plan. He had his servant put the scent of a mare preferred by his horse on his hand, and as the sun went up, he had his horse sniff his hand. The plan worked. The horse gave a neigh as the sun rose, and even more fortunately for Darius, at the same moment, lightning and thunder came down. The other men saw this as a sign that he was the true king and swore their allegiance as soon as they could. Darius became king of Persia in 522 BCE. Even though Darius had won the final victory, he still had to reckon with the masses. To the people as a whole, they had considered Bardia to be the rightful heir, so they deemed Darius to be the usurper. Darius had to suppress many uprisings before he could finally focus on other things in 519 BCE. He first decided to head towards the Indus River, where he headed on an expedition to end the revolt of the Scythians, a nomadic tribe who was a threat to the trades Persia was having with the regions near the Black Sea and Central Asia. Darius's army had a long campaign against the tribe, but gave up and took another course when he had no results. The only thing he accomplished was conquering some regions in Eastern Europe. After leaving Scythia, Darius set his sights on Thrace. This time, his general Megabyzus led the army and was able to add Thrace under Persian rule in 514 BCE. After capturing Thrace, Megabyzus then headed to Macedonia and was able to strike a deal with them without fighting. Due to these series of events, Darius had the confidence to start conquering territory in the Greek regions. At the beginning of the 5th century BCE, a man by the name of Aristagoras, who was the leader of Miletus, convinced the Persian satrap Artaxerxes to invade Naxos. Darius gives his blessing for this move and gives his cousin Megabates' leader Den the Expedition. Later on, Aristagoras gets into a fight with Megabates. The conflict was so bad that Aristagoras was scared he would lose his position as the leader of Miletus. That caused him to encourage the Ionians, the name given to the Greek regions that Darius had conquered, to rebel. The Ionians convinced Athens and Eretria to help, and they were able to capture Sardis, the city that Cyrus had captured after the fall of the Lydian Empire. After this, the Persians had a series of battles with the Ionians, including the Battle of Ephesus. In 497 BCE, the Persians lead a triple attack to gain back their territory. This still didn't succeed, and the Ionians even captured Miletus at one point. The revolt finally ended with the Persians agreeing to a treaty, in which Ionia paid tribute to the Persians. Even though Darius got his territory back, he still wanted to teach Athens and Eretria a lesson. The Persians first landed a successful attack on Eretria. Afterward, they marched 20 miles northeast of Athens to Marathon. The battle in Marathon happened in 490 BCE. The Athenians chose a mountainous terrain for the battle, only helped by a small Plataean force. No one saw the hope of the Athenians winning this battle, with them being outnumbered by the Persians 10 times. The Athenians were able to use their wit and force the Persians into hand-to-hand combat. They excelled at this, so they were able to break into the Persian ranks and kill over 6,000 men of the Persian army, They won in great victory while losing only 200 of their soldiers in this battle, compared to the Persians. Darius was extremely distressed by this news and wanted to take revenge. Unfortunately, seeing his defeat in Greece, the Egyptians, long dissatisfied starting during the rule of Cambyses, chose that moment to revolt. This, along with the Greek campaign that had started, caused Darius's health to decline rapidly, and he died in 486 BCE, leaving the empire still with the unrest in Egypt and the wars in Greece. Xerxes the First. Xerxes quickly inherited the throne of Persia as soon as his father Darius died, leaving him a kingdom in turmoil. There was no question of Xerxes' legitimacy, because unlike his father, he was truly one of the Achaemenid clan's royal sons, with his mother being one of Cyrus the Great's daughters. He was raised as a prince trained in riding and hunting and even served in the Persian military. As soon as Xerxes took the throne in 486 BCE, his main concern was the Egyptian revolt. The Persian king took an army to quash the rebellion that had even reached the upper Egyptian city of Thebes. After claiming the unrest, he quickly left, leaving his brother, Cambyses the First, in charge of Egypt. Returning to Persia, Xerxes started planning the biggest campaign ever seen by Persia against Greece. He spent 3 years planning for this campaign, determined to get revenge for his father. After these years of preparation, Xerxes led his army into battle against the Greeks. The Persians fought against the Greeks on 2 fronts, one battle on land and one at sea. The Battle of Thermopylae was fought on land and ended with the Persians' victory after the city-states of Athens and Sparta held on for 7 days, even with the Persian army outnumbering the Greeks. The Greeks finally had to fight to the death when a local resident betrayed them to the Persians while the Battle of Thermopylae was taking place. The battle on the sea, the Battle of Artemisium, was a bit more complicated for the Persian army. Before even meeting up with the Greeks, they were caught in a gale, losing about a third of their fleet. They tried to maneuver around the Greeks, but they got caught in another storm, and another set of fleets was lost. This series of events led to losses on both sides, but because the Greeks originally did not have many to begin with, they ended up losing this battle on the sea. The Greeks saw that they were losing both battles, so they decided to leave the regions of Artemisium, Phocis, Boeotia, Attica, and even that beloved Athens to their fate. The Persians were able to take over these regions and proceeded to attack Salamis, where the Greeks had retreated. This turned out to be the wrong decision, because the Persians' big numbers turned out to be a problem. In September 480 BC, the Greeks took advantage of the Persians having problems organizing themselves due to their big numbers and defeated them at Salamis. Xerxes returned home humiliated, and what was left of his army was greatly damaged on the way back to Persia due to lack of food and illness. Xerxes had left his military commander Mardonius to fight against the Greeks, and in 479 BCE, he led a battle against the Greeks in Plataea. Unfortunately, Mardonius, due to being ill-prepared, was unable to gain territory that connected to the central part of Greece and was counterattacked by the Greeks, who also took his life. This second wave of an attempted Greek invasion ended with the Ionian members of the Persian army defecting and helping the already victorious Greek army in the Battle of Mycale in 479 BCE. Before the Persians could regroup and try another attack, the Greeks blocked their advance in the Battle of Eurymedon. Xerxes fell into desolation and decided to retreat into his harem, removing himself from political affairs. Unlike his peaceful start when taking the throne, his death was violent, with him being assassinated in 465 BCE by the commander of the royal guard, Artabanus. Artaxerxes the First. Xerxes' son Artaxerxes got revenge for his father, killing Artabanus, who had planned a coup trying to end the rule of the Achaemenid clan. Artaxerxes ended the coup and took the throne in 465 BCE, becoming king of Persia. Even though the king had changed, the Persians were still confronting the same problems with revolts everywhere, and the Greeks a formidable enemy that the Persians could not get the best of. Artaxerxes planned out a new phase in the Greco-Persian War. He took in the former general of Athens, Themistocles, who had earned disfavor due to his conflict with the Spartans. He was charged with treason, so he escaped and found his way into Artaxerxes' court. Artaxerxes used Themistocles' knowledge of Greece to plan out a cunning plan that escalated growing tensions between the Spartans and the Athenians. He offered gifts of peace to Athens while secretly funding the buildup of Sparta's military. All this unrest between the two city-states leads to the Peloponnesian War. Artaxerxes was unable to take advantage of the war due to the death of Themistocles. Artaxerxes' attention was also drawn away from the war, because at that period, even though the Athenians were at war with the Spartans, they still put resources towards Egypt when the Egyptians once again revolted with the Libyan prince Inaros the First taking the lead. Inaros had learned that the Athenians were planning to attack the Persian city of Cyprus and decided to propose an alliance. This alliance was a success, with the satrap of Persia in control of Egypt being killed, and the Athenians gaining control of the Nile, a vital river for Egyptian civilization. This conflict between the two camps lasted 6 years, with the conflict finally coming to an end when Megabius and Arsames, respectively leading the army and naval force of Persia, defeated the alliance. The Athenians, however, were still not acquiescent. In 450 BCE, while still fighting the Peloponnesian War, they decided to continue with the initial planned attack on Cyprus. Unfortunately for the Athenians, they found the island locked down by Megabyzus' army. They still proceed, and their leader Cimon is killed in battle. Artaxerxes was tired of this ongoing conflict and proposed a peace treaty called the Peace of Callias to end this conflict with the Athenians. Artaxerxes spent the rest of his lifetime in relative peace, restoring the palace of Darius the First and developing the city of Susa. He appointed his son Xerxes the Second as his heir and passed away from natural causes in 424 BCE. After that, Persia went through a period of great unrest with his son Xerxes the Second, not even on the throne for a month when he was assassinated by his half-brother Sogdianus. Sogdianus was able to sit on the throne for 6 months before he too was assassinated by his half-brother Ochus, who took the ruling name of Darius the Second. Darius the Second. Darius the Second rule continued the unrest, with now 2 kings who died by assassination when he took the throne in 432 BCE. It is reported that much of his rule was dictated by his wife, Parysatis. Her behind-the-scenes machination had made it possible for Ochus to become the king, even with his status of being an illegitimate son of Artaxerxes. His reign was marked by a great deal of unrest, with him breaking the Peace of Callias Treaty by attacking the Greeks when Athenians suffered a defeat at the hands of the Spartans in 413 BCE. Darius swept in and made an alliance with the Spartans, signing a treaty with them. With this action, he changed the power balance of the Greeks. Now there were the weakened Athenians on one side and the empowered Spartans with Persian support on the other. The Peloponnesian War ended with no suspense. The Spartans took complete victory in 404 BCE. Darius the Second was able to use his alliance with the Spartans to end the Carian Rebellion, which happened in their territory of Anatolia in 413 BCE. Despite these great successes, the rule of Darius the Second was marred by a revolt in almost all territories around the kingdom and the corruption happening in his court. Due to these problems, by the end of his rule, Persia had lost many regions in Greece and Egypt. Artaxerxes the Second. Artaxerxes the Second, known as Arsaces, was one of the 13 children born by his father Darius the Second and his mother Parysatis. Artaxerxes became king in 404 BCE after his father's death. His brother Cyrus the Younger was infuriated by this and believed he should have become the new king of Persia because he was the main party who gave aid to the Spartans during the Peloponnesian War. Cyrus the Younger amassed a large army that included Lydian, Ionian, and Greek mercenaries to attack his brother. His army was even led by a Spartan general named Clearchus. Even though Cyrus was able to hold the line in the Battle of Cunaxa, he was killed by a flying javelin, effectively ending his revolt. After this event, Artaxerxes was angered by the Spartans, who had given their support to Cyrus during the revolt. This led to the Corinthian War in 395 BCE. Artaxerxes bribed many of Sparta's enemies to begin a war with Sparta. This war even caused Athens, a longtime enemy of Persia, to join hands with them to attack the Spartans in the Battle of Cnidus, which was a naval battle that caused the Spartans to be heavily weakened with enemies coming from all sides. The Athenians again gained power, making Artaxerxes apprehensive of them trying to take territory in Asia Minor. Artaxerxes tried to make a peace treaty once more with Sparta, but this in turn caused Athens to get restless. All these events made Artaxerxes have no better option than to make peace with both territories and be a mediator of the Peace of Antiloitus Treaty, which is also known as the King's Peace. This treaty was meant to stop the conflicts with the Greek regions, but ended up doing the opposite, with Athens, Sparta, and other Greek city-states turning against Persia in the end, and even helping the Egyptians revolt. By the end of Artaxerxes the Second's reign, even though Persia was still in control of Upper Egypt, the Egyptians had taken control of the Delta regions and had even appointed a new pharaoh. The king started a war to get back control of Egypt in 373 BCE. The Egyptians, backed by the Athenians, put up a successful fight, and the campaign came to nothing. Artaxerxes tried to come up with a second campaign and set up Datames as the leader. Before the campaign could get any result, Datames changed his mind and pointed his sword toward the Persian king instead. Datames and a group of satraps from all over Persia made a deal with the Egyptians and revolted against the king. Even with the aid of Athens and Sparta, this revolt didn't succeed due to it being very disorganized. Artaxerxes' Persia was in constant conflict, and in the end, he lost Egypt completely by the end of his reign in 358 BCE. Artaxerxes the Third. Towards the end of Artaxerxes' reign, his son, then known as Ochus, was already plotting to take the throne after his father. His father only had 4 sons who could inherit the throne. Over the years, he set up plots to get rid of all 3 of his brothers. His oldest brother Darius was found out to be plotting treason, and he was executed. His next brother Artaxerxes ended up committing suicide due to another plot of Ochus. His father's last choice before him would have been his illegitimate brother Arsames, but he was killed in yet another plot by him. Finally, Artaxerxes the First had no choice but to leave the throne to Ochus. Ochus became king of Persia in 358 BCE and took the ruling name Artaxerxes the Third. As soon as Artaxerxes the Third became king, he killed off anyone who could challenge his legitimacy, killing all members of the ruling family. He was cruel and distrustful of the nobility, so he had all satraps get rid of their mercenaries. The satraps all agreed until one particular satrap, Artaxerxes, who was removed from his post 2 years into Artaxerxes' reign, started a revolt. Artaxerxes sent a force against him that was led by other satraps of Anatolia. Artaxerxes was able to hold his own by asking the Athenians for help. Artaxerxes then bribed the Athenians to stay out of the conflict. The satrap then took up another alliance, this time with the Thebans, another city-state of Greece. This alliance did not hold because Artaxerxes became involved in a conflict with the Theban general, circumstances being what they were led him to need to escape to Philip II's court in Macedonia. After this conflict, Artaxerxes turned his focus on gaining back control of Egypt with a military campaign that ended rapidly due to the Athenians and Spartans supporting Egypt. Artaxerxes also had to rush to quash another revolt, this time in Cyprus. Artaxerxes was able to stop the rebellion with the help of Persian allies. Artaxerxes also had to settle the rebellion of Sidon before he could turn his attention back to Egypt in 339 BCE. He amassed an army with troops from Argos, Thebes, and Asia Minor. The failure to handle Egypt's treacherous terrain led Artaxerxes to switch strategies and make up 3 divisions that were assigned different regions to break in from all sides. Artaxerxes was finally able to reconquer Egypt, which had been lost in his father's time. He quickly weakened the Egyptian people by taxing them to the extreme, burning sacred books, and persecuting their local religions to keep a firm grip on the people. For the rest of his reign, he was able to stop revolts by taking these intense but effective steps, leading Persia to a time of relative peace. All of this came to an end, however, when a court eunuch by the name of Bagus poisoned Artaxerxes and his elder sons in 338 BC, only keeping one son by the name of Arses alive. Artaxerxes the Fourth. The violent death of his father and his older brothers left Artaxerxes' youngest son, Arses, with a responsibility that was too much for his age. Bagoa had hoped to control the empire by using the young king, now going by his ruling name Artaxerxes the Fourth. Unfortunately, he failed to acknowledge that Persia's situation was only so stable because of Artaxerxes the Third's vicious but firm rule. The Persians' new enemy, the Macedonians, saw this as a perfect opportunity to make their move on the territory by asking for monetary compensation for Persia's helping Thrace, when Philip II wanted to take over the territory in the time of Artaxerxes the Third. The Persian Empire disagreed with this arrangement, and Philip II was furious and planned to launch an attack on the empire. Before Philip II could launch his attack, the chaos in the royal court of Persia killed Artaxerxes the Fourth first. During his reign, the young king was very distrustful of Bagus and had tried to have him poisoned in many instances. Unfortunately for the king, Bagus had the same plan and managed to kill the young king first. After Artaxerxes the Fourth died of poisoning in 336 BCE, Bagus chose his cousin Artashata to become king. Artashata took the ruling name of Darius the Third. Not long after taking the throne, due to a number of conflicts between the two of them, Darius the Third had Bagus killed by making him drink from a cup that had been poisoned by Bagus ahead of time and meant for the king himself. By this point, Philip II had finished his preparations and launched an attack on Persia by using the getting revenge for an affront to Greece by the Persians as an excuse. Philip II was able to have a very successful start to the war with Persia caving in from the inside. Philip was unable to fulfill his ambitions due to his being stabbed at his daughter's wedding in Aegae, causing his immediate death. The campaign was suspended, and the Macedonians drew back in the meantime. For the Persians, they put their focus on yet another revolt going on in Egypt and didn't take Philip II's heir, Alexander, as a threat. In the beginning, Darius the Third had the satraps deal with the Macedonian force and was able to win 2 battles, which grew their confidence. Unfortunately, the war took a sharp turn when Alexander was able to kill Darius the Third's son-in-law, and the Persians retreated. In the Battle of Issus in 333 BCE, Darius the Third took command of the army himself. Leading them to the town of Issus, they found initial success in the early stages, but Alexander was able to break into the center of the Persian army. Seeing this, Darius the Third was reported to have fled the battlefield. The rest of the Persian soldiers, seeing their king fleeing, followed his path. The Macedonians gave chase, killing soldiers in the process. Darius fled to Babylon and tried to have a peaceful negotiation with Alexander, offering him his daughter's hand in marriage and joint ownership of the Persian Empire. Alexander rejected all of this, wanting to take full ownership of the Persian Empire. Darius the Third once again led an army into battle with Alexander, this time in Gaugamela. At this point, Alexander had captured most of Asia Minor, and Persia was one of the last territories for him to capture. In the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BCE, Alexander and his army put all of their cunning and skills into battling the Persian army. Finally, Alexander was able to break into the center of the army where Darius the Third was located yet again. Darius the Third once more fled the battlefield. Darius fled on horseback with his army following behind him. Darius's satrap, Bessus, tired of the situation, killed the Persian king while they were fleeing. Bessus then proclaimed himself king of Persia with the name Artaxerxes the Fifth. Alexander gave Darius the Third a burial in the Persepolis, the Persian capital, then chased and captured Bessus, killing him and ending the Achaemenid clan's Persian empire that had lasted for about 200 years. Thank you for joining us once again as we went back to ancient Persia to learn about its history. Please don't forget to like and subscribe so you can join us next time.